The VK3002DB tank by Daimler-Benz is not a typical medium tank for the German branch. This machine was an alternative to the Panther, both in reality and in the game, which is not surprising because both machines were developed at the same time. But if the Panther is a classic German tank, the VK3002DB was built with a clear resemblance to the Soviet T-34 tank with all its particular features. Please note that, going through the VKDB research, you can unlock the Panther and the Tiger, killing two birds with one stone. You won't have to level the German heavy tank branch separately. The hull armor is fairly similar to the Panther, 80mm in the front, 45mm to the side, and 40mm in the rear. Although the armor of the VK3002DB is better than that of the T-43 or T-20, it still rarely protects you from the shells of your same-tier enemies. But if you turn the hull at an angle, putting it to a diamond shape, the chance of getting a ricochet increases. The sides of the tank are poorly armored and can be pierced by even low-tier opponents. It's worth noting that the frontal armor of the tank has a weak point, the driver's hatch. If possible, hide it from enemy fire. The worst setback of the VKDB is the small arc of elevation, which makes firing down from a hill a bit difficult. The tank's turrets are worth a separate study, as many players prefer to go for the stock turret with a 75mm long barreled gun. The stock turret has 80mm of front armor. The sides and rear have a thickness of 45mm. This turret gives next to no protection against enemy fire, has a shorter view range, 350 meters, and it stores less ammunition, 36. But it also has a number of advantages: high-speed rotation and a lot less weight, 4,700 kilograms compared to 10,800 kilograms for the top turret. With a stock turret and a 75mm KWK 42L70. The tank weighs nearly 36 tons, which provides a significant increase in power-to-weight ratio. Thanks to this, the tank can run around opponents and get to key objectives before the other players do. The top turret also has its advantages. It's heavier and has much better armoring. The turret front is 120mm thick and has a Smaltum-type mantlet that withstands enemy shots from tanks up to Tier 7 and even higher ones if you're lucky. The view range of 370 meters lets you detect the enemy at long range, which combined with the crew's view-enhancing perks and coated optics allows you to see better than Tier 8 tanks. You can mount a powerful 88mm gun KWK 36L56 to the best turret, which has an average damage of 220 points per shot and a great rate of fire. With the installation of the top turret, the tank gets an increase to its maximum stored ammunition, up to 60 88mm shells. The stock engine of the VKDB is installed in nearly half of German tanks and is nothing special, but the top-end engine deserves special attention. The 750 horsepower DB603A2 diesel by Daimler-Benz is a VKDB exclusive, which costs a ton of experience points. This is exactly why many players don't want to research it, but its extra 100 horsepower is not redundant. With this engine, your tank gains greater maneuverability and will accelerate faster, so you can get to your objectives quickly. One more important thing, it's a diesel engine, so the chance of catching fire is only 15%, although you will not be able to use gasoline consumables. But that's not all. If you open the full German tank research tree, which is available on our website, you will see the Indien Panzer, after the VK3002DB, which was also developed by Daimler-Benz. Maybe these tanks will share some modules. The VKDB owner has a choice of two cannons, each of them having their own advantages. The first is the KWK 42L70. Its main advantage is good armor penetration, 150mm compared to 132mm penetration for the 88mm gun. This gun also has slightly better accuracy and a higher rate of fire. It is perfect for firing at an enemy vehicle's weak spot. The main disadvantage is the low per-shot damage of 135 points, which reduces the total damage per minute to about 1,400 points. The 88mm cannon has less penetration, as mentioned before, but it has great per-shot damage of 220 points, and its lower penetration is compensated for by a higher fire rate, which provides very good damage per minute, about 1900 points. This gun's penetration is sufficient to combat Tier 7 vehicles. But in order to punch through the armor of Tier 8 or Tier 9 tanks, you will have to shoot the sides, rear, or other weak points of the enemy. We are finished with the weapons. Now we will say a few words about the layout of the tank, which, in this case, is a little unusual for a German vehicle. The layout of the tank was modeled after the Soviet T-34, but the VK-DB was cured of some of its flaws. The fuel tanks, in contrast to the 34, are located in the engine transmission compartment at the rear of the tank, and not in the crew cabin. The crew itself is laid out to standard. Driver on the left, radio operator on the right. The gunner, commander, and loader are located in the turret. The main difference from the majority of German tanks is the transmission location. The VK-DB has it installed in the back, so it is impossible to set the tank on fire from the front. We have reviewed the technical characteristics and the module configuration of the tank, so let's switch to the battle tactics for this machine. The VK3002DB is a medium tank. Its main purpose is to capture key points on the map, spot enemies, and support Allied heavy tanks. The VK-DB easily handles all of these tasks. With its powerful engine and high top speed, it can travel quickly to key places on the map, outrunning the enemy, and its 370 meters view range allows you to spot an opponent before they can even see you. Let's discuss tactics for different map types, in two cases, when we are in the top of the list of players and when our VK-DB is lower on the list. When the VK3002DB is at the top of the list, proper use of the tank's strong sides lets you almost single-handedly destroy top enemy vehicles, medium and heavy tanks alike. The main thing is to know the weak points of the enemy tanks. Here are some examples. The IS can be pierced through the turret front, the lower armor plate, the commander's cupola. The Porsche Tiger can be pierced through the hull cheeks, bottom armor plate, and the commander's cupola. Using your knowledge of these weak points, you can take full advantage of the 88mm cannon's penetration. When in battle, you should be the first to occupy key locations, and by doing so, you'll be able to spot enemy vehicles, deal damage, and divert attention. But if you see that you're left alone on some flank, don't try to make a last stand. In this case, it is best to seek assistance or move to a more secure position where allies are located. But sometimes it's better to act in another way. If you have spotted enemies and they are tanks from the top of the list, retreat is not always the best option. In this case, try to assess the situation. Determine where your artillery is aiming and how far away other Allied vehicles are, and try to stop the enemy by using the terrain or other obstacles that will protect you from enemy fire. If your opponent is of a higher tier than you, it is better to immobilize him. Knock his tracks off, allowing your allies to easily destroy the enemy. Yes, this tactic is risky, and it's very likely that you won't survive. But if you can hold back the advance of the enemy, your allies will have time to react and destroy the enemy tanks before they can push to your rear and begin to capture your base. You will have to act a bit differently on a city map. Typically, these locations are smaller, and the battles are fought in quite a different manner. A classic example is the city map Himmelsdorf. The walkways and narrow streets are where the enemy heavies almost always have their fronts turned our way. Here, you can make use of the top engine pros. Thanks to this, we, in contrast to the heavy tank, can quickly climb hills and get behind the enemies that are on the banana. In this case, your best bet is to cooperate with friendly medium tanks. Don't forget about analysis and plan of action. Always monitor how many medium tanks your team has and the enemy has, so you won't be left alone, surrounded by several enemy mediums. If the enemy has a clear advantage, then you should cover the friendly tanks so that your enemies can't easily destroy them. When meeting an enemy HT, do not stand alone trying to penetrate its armor head-on. Get help from teammates and deter the enemy before they approach. For example, knocking the enemy's tracks off and then hiding behind a house or other cover. Remember that an ideal plan of action does not exist. Always analyze the current situation and plan your actions to be one step ahead. You should also consider your options when you're at the bottom. You won't be responsible for a lot of the combat, but but you can still change the outcome of the battle. Don't forget that it's not always necessary to cause direct damage to the enemy, knocking off their tracks, flanking the enemy, taking a hit for a higher tier ally if you see that it will kill him. All contribute to the battle. These things will help you and your team win. Remember that you shouldn't push forward without support. If you happen to have a face-to-face encounter with a Type 59, for example, don't forget that it also has weak spots, such as the commander's cupola. Almost every tank you will encounter can be penetrated through the sides. If you can't manage it yourself, wait for others, or try to pull the enemy tank within range of your artillery. Remember your task in battle. Cooperate with the team. Analyze the situation. The right decisions will lead you to victory. This leaves us with a few more questions that relate to the perks of the crew and additional equipment. Extra equipment for the VK3002DB is standard for the German medium tanks. The gun rammer reduces the gun's reload time. Coated optics will give you a good view range, and ventilation slightly improves all skills of the tank's crew. This combination is the best, but the ventilation can also be replaced with enhanced gun-laying drive for faster aiming. As for the crew's skills, repair is mandatory. Since we play a medium tank, we often find ourselves in the middle of battle, and sometimes a knocked-off track can cost us our life. The second perk for the commander should be Sixth Sense and Situational Awareness for the radio operator. The first will alert you when you have been spotted. The second one increases the view range by 3%. Further leveling opportunities let us pick a second commander skill. Recon, which gives a plus 2% for the view range, will also be helpful. The driver skills are also useful. They improve dynamics a bit, but are not critical, since the tank is already very fast and maneuverable. The VK3002DB is a classic medium tank with good maneuverability and a good weapon. This tank's tactics and behavior in battle are very much like the Soviet T-43, which is similar to the VKDB in looks and characteristics. The VKDB is often referred to as an outsider because of the low armor penetration of its weapons, but if the pros of this vehicle are properly used, the cons of the tank are evened out, and the VK3002DB will feel quite good in any tier fights. To have complete confidence in yourself, we recommend you carry a small amount of premium ammunition. Sometimes it can save your life. That's all. Play intelligently, analyze your own and others' mistakes, and you will succeed.